So we're going to be talking about transforming the people analytics function and technology at Adobe. I think some of you heard me say earlier, but just to ground us again, I'm responsible for not just the analytics and insights function, but also the technology team, so Workday, ServiceNow, integration landscape, all of that, as well as the tech and data ops team. So that is my entire scope, and I am joined by Sasha here, who leads our people analytics team. So we're going to talk a little bit about the transformation journey that we've been on. Candidly, I am 18 whole months in job, so very exciting last 18 months, and Sasha, you are now at six months in role. So we've been just driving a ton of change, and we're going to share that with you, both broad overall for the organization, but then specifically in the people analytics space, and want to share very transparently with you some of the lessons we've learned the hard way. Not all of them have been the hard way, but a lot of lessons learned the hard way. And I would say as we get to the end and we have time for questions, please, that question you're thinking, you're like, Michelle's never going to tell me what's really going on. Actually, I will. So please, all the questions that you can think of, either in the session or afterwards, we are very happy to answer. So this is my team. As I said, we've got the Insights and Analytics team, technology, and tech and data ops. And while I'm seeing this configuration become more and more, it's still not a norm. And when I interviewed for this job, I was initially interviewing for the people analytics leader job. That's what Adobe had put out there. And we were talking, and at one point, they're like, we're also looking for a technology director. Would it make sense if we brought the two of these things together? And candidly, my first thought, and I can share this with a data audience, my first thought was like, yes, one less person to mess up my data quality. If I control the technology, they can't screw up my data quality. That was my initial reaction. My more thoughtful reaction was, how cool would that be if we thought about insights and experiences together, and using data to drive insights, but data to drive different employee experiences and simple employee experiences. And then on the flip side of that, how great is it if the technology team is thinking about how do I get the best quality data to surface the right kinds of insights because they understand the business context and what the business is driving towards. So it was really kind of that inspiration of what does that look like when we bring the two together that we formed this organization that frankly pried me out of my last job because I'm really passionate about seeing what these three teams now can do together. And then our tech and data ops team, just really the folks who, these are the folks who are making it all happen, right? They're in there, they're updating the hierarchies, all those things with org maintenance, location maintenance that nobody likes to think about, but are so critical to data and technology working. That also sits within my organization. And having that team have a lens on experience and high data quality is really helping us change the way we operate as an organization. I had too many? There we go, good. So the initial transformation focus that we have had over the last 18 months has been a lot around Adobe's growth. And as I mentioned in the earlier panel, Adobe has grown tremendously over the last several years, from a fewer than 10,000 employee country to 23,000 and growing all of the time. At the core of Adobe's culture, highly, highly relational. And when you're a smaller company, you can know everybody. It's like, oh, hey, I know you. I can go ask for you to help me with this Workday thing, which only works to a certain point. And what we were finding is that we were just hitting up against this process and intake and engagement model challenge that had been based on drive-bys in the hallway, or let me stop by your desk, or hey, let me Slack you something, and very spur of the moment. And I share this story. It made me cringe at the time. I think my second week on the job, I watched my team pop open the hood in Workday production and make a change live in production, no testing, because a recruiter popped by and asked for it. And I was like, oh, dear God, what possibly could go wrong here? And our data quality from that instance, guess what happened? The data was junk. and we couldn't use any of the data from that change, which we needed. So we've really made a big pivot to bringing in more formal channels, bringing in review processes. We did a big shift to agile development. And I know the things I'm talking about all sound very tech-oriented, but they were critical to put in place to make sure that the data quality was there. And also, as Sasha and her team start to develop new reports, having us develop in the same way across the technology and analytics function helps us get to our outcomes faster with fewer misses. So it was a really important pivot that we made in process and intake changes that we've established and we've been running with. We also had to shift on roles and responsibilities. I like to joke that my entire team was not unlike a 7-year-old soccer team. And if you have kids who play soccer, you know that you throw a soccer ball out onto the field with 7-year-olds and they all go around the ball, right? They're all like, oh, here we are as a clump, and they all want to kick it, and who knows where it goes, off the field, wrong goal, all of that. So we went from 7-year-old soccer to having new roles and differentiated roles and starting to reinforce. It's like, this is what the people analytics team does. This is how to connect with the people analytics team. So really differentiating those roles as opposed to everybody moving as a clump is enabling us to be more effective and move faster and drive a lot of this transformation. And then the last one I would just say is the mindset shift we had to make, not just within the team, but within our partners. And we were in a customer is always right. Your way, right away, fast. To my earlier example of like, let's pop the hood on production, who needs to test anything before we roll it out? But also a bit risk adverse. A bit risk adverse from the perspective of not necessarily thinking things through and saying, maybe let's try this, or let's try it that way, but a very reactive team. And we've pivoted to a team where we are really focusing in on, before we touch anything, we need to understand the business problem. That's been a huge change, not just for us in the organization, but also all of our partners across HR. So saying to an HR business partner who says, just give me all the termination data and don't ask me so many questions, to us saying, well, what are you trying to do with that? Like, are you worried about attrition? You worried about voluntary attrition? You worried about not enough attrition? What are you worried about? And some of our partners initially kind of taking that step back on their heels of like, whoa, how dare you ask me? How dare you ask me what I'm going to do with the data? Don't you trust me? So there's been a big part of change that we've had to drive of, it's not trust, it's help us understand the business problem so we can deliver the highest quality insights or the highest quality technology with urgency. And that's taken a lot of transformation, and I won't declare that we've quite nailed it yet. We've still got some holdouts who are just like, my way, right away. But this has been part of that journey in shifting the mindset so that we can get great data and simple experiences in our technology. So it really is hinged a lot around that learning from experiences, and we even joke on the team, we call it, so that was a lesson we learned the hard way. And it's like, okay, so let's not do that again. Let's have a learning mindset as an organization, because as Adobe grows, we need people who can learn and learn to do new things, because we're doing new things as a company every day. We need an analytics and technology organization in HR that can do the same. All right. Lastly, before I turn it over to my very capable people analytics leader here, Sasha, one of the things that we had to do that I think has helped us tremendously in making this change, so when you're talking about that transformation of data order takers to people analytics and true insights, we had to think about how we engaged with the rest of the organization and how we prioritized our work. And this looks super simplistic, but this actually took us a year to get to. So just to give you context of, it's like a nice pretty visual, but this took us over a year to land. And what it is looking across my organization. First, we have strategic road mapping and prioritization, the big things. What are the big things that we're going to do? And we have executive steering committees who help us with that, including our CHRO. So including a number, our VP of talent, right? So we've got a number of our executives on these steering committees to really help us get that line of sight to what's going to move the needle for the business that we should take a big chunk of our team and put their resources against. and helping us make sure we stay very tied to the business, as opposed to, if you remember from before, right, that very reactive, lots of ad hoc development, we're spending a lot of calories on little requests. We needed to pivot to what are the big bets and how can we execute against the big bets and clear out some of the noise. So that's what we did with the Executive Steering Committee. Then followed that up with a cross-functional advisory committee. And that is a team that's cross-functional, not just across our HR and real estate organization, but we have members of finance, we have members of our workplace team, we have members of our IT organization. So really having that cross-functional view of smaller projects, enhancements. So as the inevitable demand of, ooh, I want to build a big report, or ooh, I just saw this vendor at a conference, and I really want to buy one of those folks who are all next door to us, like, let's buy that and let's implement that. We have a mechanism to start to filter through some of those and make sure that they don't detract us from the big bet. Or if it comes up and it's like, wow, that's even more important than one of our big bets, we need to move that up to the Executive Steering Committee. Now we have channels to be able to do that so that we can be really thoughtful. Big chunk of what we do is still run the business, right? There's still the, hey, I need a birthday list, right? How many of you, birthday lists, right? Never fails, we all have to do them. It's no fun, but the exec admins, right? They carry a lot of weight. You don't want to piss off the wrong EA. So we need to make sure that the run the business stuff is still happening. And now we have channels, and we use ServiceNow as one of our channels for these ongoing support and ad hoc requests. And we have members of each of my 3 teams dedicated against the ServiceNow channel, but my leadership team is looking at it holistically so we can run that as an organization with our simple experiences and great data quality in mind. And then the last couple of roles I would just call out, these are 2 of our new roles, one of which is Insights Partners. This was to carve out some analysts from kind of the day-to-day data architecture work that Sasha and her team have to focus heavily on, and spending a lot of time with our COE partners and our business partners to really understand that business context. What's the business worried about? What are the things we need to be thinking about? Bring that back to the center. And share that with us, but then also communicate back out to the world to say, hey, here's some of the challenges we're seeing with data quality, and we need your help. Or hey, we're launching a new dashboard. We've got a new OpenRec dashboard going live on Monday. Here's what it is, do a little training and education. So the Insights Partners are that conduit back and forth when it comes to the Insights organization. And then we have technology partners who do a very similar role out to the COEs from a technology perspective. So we've got these 2 partnering roles that really help us bring the rest of the organization along and drive that change by focusing in on what are the problems we're trying to solve, and then let us figure out how are we going to solve them to get great data and simple technology solutions. All right, so with that, I am going to turn it over to Sasha.
Thank you, Michelle. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So before I start getting into this, just another preface saying I've been with Adobe for the last 6 months, so what I'm sharing today is definitely more of a philosophical framework for our journey, as well as some of the successes, as well as some of the lessons learned. So we definitely don't have it all figured out, but committed to share it in a transparent way. So it may sound cliche that every journey starts with the destination in mind, but it is so very true, and I want to unpack one element of it that is very important to me. It's clarity regarding the mission and the goals, not only for the leaders, but also for the entire team. And it's not just knowing it from the cognitive perspective, it's also being really motivated to get there. And that touches on identity change, and it's something that's truly transformational and takes time. So for us, we spend quite a bit of time looking at what do we want to be as a people analytics team? What's our current state? Where are we doing some of the things that are not aligning with our mission? We started to look at kind of the plethora of things that we do today as a team, and thinking what belongs here in the future state and what doesn't, and how do we envision ourselves being more strategic and delivering more impact to the business. And the team engaging in that exercise together and really wrestling with these questions have led us to that first stage of not only knowing that vision, but also being motivated around it. And the second component here, there there we go, is articulating not only the what and the how, not only the what, but also the how. And you'll see that theme through the entire journey. It's not only what we want to do, but also how do we want to show up. And so we focus specifically on cultivating the desired behaviors. So leveraging some of the more senior members of the team who have that consultative approach and who've been effective at challenging the status quo and asking those difficult questions, understanding the context so that we can help and deliver value to the business as opposed to being more transactional and giving a report when somebody is asking for it. And so we've made it a habit to share those examples, those success stories, as well as allowing room for those individuals to answer questions of the more junior members of the team of what exactly they have done, what has worked well, what obstacles they encountered. And not only the members of the team, but also seeing the desired behaviors in our partners. And we use the word partner very intentionally. It's not our customer, because the idea of all of the employee experience, all of the HR organization being our partner in it. They're not just a customer who receives what they want. They're partnering with us. So when we see those specific behaviors in our leaders of centers of excellence, we recognize it, we have them share those examples and experiences so that others in the team can see what is the kind of desired partnership look like. And I'll talk about the cross-functional partnerships. This, to me, is one of the more crucial elements of our journey. And it's identifying opportunities to partner together with other teams. So, for example, with the legal, privacy, and enterprise security teams, we've partnered on the shared goal of communicating to the entire HR organization and to the business, what are the different types of data? What is your obligation with regard to how you share this data? What is your obligation with regard to storing the data appropriately based on the data classification? What is the obligation with regard to not using individual level data when you don't need it, right? What is the obligation with regard to deleting the data when you've done using it? And so we've found that our privacy team had very specific goals with regard to new regulations and trying to educate the organization. And we took the partnership a step further. We said, not only we're going to learn what you're trying to achieve here, but we're going to use our position as a gatekeeper for the data, right? If people come to us and ask for a report, we have this unique opportunity to champion those specific items that both the privacy team, the legal team, and the enterprise security team deeply care about, right? So how do we leverage our position in this organization to help promote that goal? And at the same time, the privacy team and the enterprise security team are able to help us create that narrative, right? So no longer it's us telling people, you shouldn't be doing this. It's the privacy team and it's the legal team telling them that. And we're emphasizing why it's important from the entire company perspective. It's the enterprise security team who articulates what's the proper process for storage and provides tips and tricks for how to do it in the HR organization. So again, we're able to accomplish more than each one of us would have individually. In terms of our partnerships with the HR Center of Excellence as well as finance, it's been primarily focused so far on identifying opportunities to align on what we call our metrics and how we calculate them, because if you have different groups reporting dashboards and finance has one number, HR has one number, different centers of excellence, and we call it all the same thing, and then we can confuse our audience, right? And so we started the collaboration in that sense to align on how we report, how do we define metrics, how do we report on things. The partnership with finance as well as information technology and HR has also been focused on getting around the same table and talking about what are our needs from the data and reporting perspective. If we are thinking about how do we share the data with the organization in the right way, what are some of the things we can collaborate and really create requirements for the tools and technology in a holistic way? So it's not the people team focuses on the people analytics need, and then the workplace team and the finance team focus on their needs with regard to data, we come around the table together. And with the IT partners being there as well, we'll look at what is existing internally, what resources are already used, what tools are already used that we can leverage and really create something bigger for the company together, as opposed to focusing on our individual needs. I will definitely have to say one thing. Partnerships are hard work. It doesn't come easy. And it's really that belief in the impact and the opportunity to do something in a synergistic way that delivers so much more value for the company, that drives the desire and persistence to collaborate with others, to really understand what they care about, what is important for their agenda, and how we can together achieve that. The next point, and Michelle touched on it already, was kind of the changing of the mindset. Cultivating that growth mindset and the learning mindset within the team has been really important, because we acknowledge that it doesn't look like this on the picture, right? It's not this sailing into the sunset. It's more of the waves and the rocks thrown in the way. So it's really an arduous journey. So how do we cultivate that growth mindset? How do we acknowledge that we don't have it figured out? We take regularly an opportunity to think through the lessons learned, whether it's a big milestone launch or even it's an escalation that comes to me or Michelle from one of our partners saying that the team didn't deliver the service that they requested or they expected. We take it as an opportunity to unpack it and see what are the specific things where we could take accountability, what are the specific things where we can improve our internal processes, and what are those specific things where we can use it as an opportunity to make meaning with our partners of why we're asking questions, how are we envisioning to change our identity and become more strategic. And the other component there is staying flexible and pivoting, because again, some things come up that we didn't account for, and just not being discouraged and realizing that we might take a setback now, but we will be continuing in the right direction. And so the last point here is really keeping an eye on the big picture, regularly referring to what we're trying to do here, keeping an eye on our goals and our strategy, so that we can make room for that strategic thinking, because things get busy, there's a lot of pressure, and it's really easy to go back to that default mode and not focus on that identity change that we're trying to drive. And I'll turn it over to Michelle so she can share some more lessons learned.
All right, there we go. So this was a thought that I had early on when I saw some of the behaviors. I was like, oh, we've been binge eating on double stuffed Oreos, right? Whatever I want, whenever I want, I'm gonna just keep eating the junk food, and it's gonna satiate that need. But it never quite gets there. You always have a stomachache afterwards when you eat nothing but junk food. And I'm trying to take the organization, with help of Sasha, on a diet, right? We're going from double stuffed to broccoli. And broccoli, not super exciting in the moment, but yay, you're gonna feel stronger, you're gonna be healthier, we're gonna satiate the need. But it's been very tough. As those of you who have kids, you know what happens when you take away the double stuffed Oreos. I mean, all hell breaks loose. And it's definitely been challenging. There's been some lessons we've learned the hard way. I think both Sasha and I would move faster if we could. Like, we'd say, nope, this is the way we're doing it, we're gonna go. But bringing a whole organization along, the antibodies come out. And I think one of my lessons learned is, instead of making one big change at once, when you know something's gonna be tough, like you're gonna have to change a process for the capture of data, auditing of the data, metric calculation change, you need to do change management. You can't underestimate the amount of change management you have to do. But with these big organizations, breaking it down into small chunks and understanding like where are you going to flex? Where are you going to be okay with maybe meeting them a little closer to where they are versus like, nope, I'm in my position firm and this is the way we're going to do it. You know, we have a data load process that was giving us a lot of issues in the metrics. And we said, we're not going to do it that way anymore. We're going to plant a flag. We're going to say this is the way we're going to do it. And I think some HR business partners were probably burning me in effigy with that hard line. And we softened a little bit. And by saying, okay, tell us what you're trying to do. Let us understand. And it still didn't get us the data quality we wanted, but we got a little closer. And then we're going to get a little closer again and a little closer again. So I would say if you're standing up a new analytics function, trying to change HR, I mean, nobody goes into HR because they love data, right? Remember that's the target audience. These are not folks who necessarily naturally come to data, but we can get them there. We can teach them, but we can't expect an overnight change, right? Because we just took away all their double stuffs. So thinking about it is breaking it down into those component chunks so that you can get them a little closer and a little closer and a little closer and get comfortable with that. So I'd say overarching, that's probably been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the last 18 months, but am happy to answer any questions with that.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Sasha. It's absolutely brilliant. We had Stacia and Priyanka giving us analogies about Super Mario yesterday, and now we've got analogies about Oreos. This is
cookies.
Very creative.
What's better than
conference.
Cookies?
So does anyone have any questions? If you put your hand up and the mic will come around, and I'll ask one whilst we're waiting for the mic to get there. I know that you have a very supportive CHRO in Donna Morris to help affect this change. So it would be good if you could talk to how helpful that's been and is continuing to be. And maybe, I think at one time, Donna had responsibility for customer experience and employee experience as well, which I think is an interesting dynamic that might help your answer. I don't know.
Well, and I would say, so you haven't looked at your Adobe newsfeed today, but Donna Morris announced yesterday that she is leaving Adobe.
Oh dear.
Of which we were all very sad. But I will still answer the question because as a CHRO, she has a huge appetite for data. She's a business leader of the company and just needs to make data-driven decision-making. And that helped remove some of the barriers, but also get the resourcing required. I'm not even sure I go so far as to call it the people analytics function, but when I joined, the reporting team was quite small. And now that team, the in-between insights and people analytics, that team is now double the size of what it was when I started. And that is due to the support, the CHRO saying, oh, this is where we need to go. We need the right people to get there, and these are the kinds of roles. Sasha's role did not exist 12 months ago. So pulling that together and seeing it, and she's been tremendously supportive that way. But she's also been very supportive of understanding the way we used to operate and the way we used to engage each other did not get us the data that we need. So she and her leadership team have been really able to kind of instill in folks who don't see value in inputting data into a system because it slows them down, really get that galvanization around everything has to go into the system if we want it to be reportable. And that was a really big shift for us. So we will miss her terribly.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't realise the news. Actually.
It's okay. It just came out yesterday. So.
It was overshadowed because where I used to work at IBM, Ginny resigned as CEO. So, sorry, question. Yes.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Netta. I'm a people analyst at Pure Storage. And you and Sasha both were talking about the journey and, getting to that bigger picture. You've been at Adobe 18 months, Sasha 6. How far is your roadmap out? As in, do you see, in 2 years we'll get to this point, and in 5 years we'll get to that point, or is it more on a
I'd say
quarterly basis?
How do I answer this? I have a 3-year vision, right? But it is a vision, and it has changed at least 3 times in 18 months, right? So I've got a 3-year vision in mind of where we're going, and we have a roadmap laid out kind of tactically of what we need to do in this fiscal year. And and one of the things that I think we need to be thoughtful of is we need to move at the readiness of the business as well, because some of the things I wanted to do straight out of the gate, the organization was not ready for. Some of the things the organization wanted to do straight out of the gate, like AI and candidate selection, I looked at our data quality and it's like, I don't even have anything to predict with that. So we have to pivot. So we've got kind of tactical near-term reporting platform, data quality, but it's all in line of sight. We completely revamped our listening strategy last year so that we could get good sentiment and listening data. But that it pivots all the time. So I think it's important to have, like Sasha says, we have the end in mind, but we're winding our way there, and the end point, some of the things may move out, some of them may move forward. I don't know if you'd add.
Yeah, I think very, very much so similar situation. I also have a 3-year roadmap for analytics specifically, and it has all these kind of side notes on there that, based on the business needs, we might prioritize certain areas of focus depending on kind of who is ready from the business perspective to move forward.
Hi, Michelle, Sasha, thank you very much for being here. So I'm Rahul. I'm People Analytics Insights Manager at the Clorox company. I would love it if you can share your experience, your current state around people analytics systems, what we're calling multi-source analysis platforms, where you are today and where you see that going at Adobe.
Yes, well, fortunately, thanks to Clorox, we just hired an amazing technology leader for my organization, so I'm very sorry, but not sorry. So we within the last 4 months, we managed to recruit over Clorox's director of technology, who is now in my organization, and I know, we're like, yes, sorry. And this is part of why coming together, right? So Sasha and Shweta being able to work together on how do our source systems generate data so we can bring it together and integrate. I would say with our current state, it's heavily manual. I mean, we have reporting going on and we've got Visier, but we also have Culture Amp for our surveys, and that's very siloed off. So a lot of our analysts are having to do more advanced things. We're mashing up the data ourselves, and we're using R, and that's this current state. We know the kinds of things that we need to do, but we're at a very nascent stage. We're still building the structure out underneath it. But the structure, these experiments that we're running and being able to do these things manually and prove value will help get us funding for more and more. And one of Sasha's big projects this year is to drive an integrated reporting platform that I would see us being able to use for other types of projects as well.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Michelle and Sasha.
right.
Al's done such a good job on keeping us on time
I'm stunned.
that I don't want to ruin it. We are on time. I know, because how many times have we ever been on time?
Never.
Never. Well, it's a new, efficient,
It's a new day.
sleek PAFOW. So, Michelle, Sasha, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And look forward to hearing more about your journey maybe next year.
Next year.
So, thank you very much.
Thanks.